Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you our Living Theurgy podcast. And I have with me Mierzwicli, Clio, Ajana, and Apollonius, aka Ajana of Japan. Greetings and welcome, fellow Theurgists. How are you?
Doing well, Hercules. How are you?
I'm doing great. And our muse is not with us today. So Tony is going to take the scepter as he is spearheading our presentation at the LlewellynCon, which is coming up in June. It's right around the corner.
Do you want me to start talking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in November 2025, the anthology that the seven of us are all in came out with the title Theurgy, Seven Approaches to Divine Connection. As a group, we began looking for promotional opportunities to ensure the success of the book. Our first opportunity came at PaganaCon 2026, which ran in March 2026 in Bloomington, Minnesota. Four of us were supposed to present, namely Brandy, also known as Cleopatra, Clio, Apollonius, also known as John Opsenpaus, and myself. The idea was to run a panel with the four of us physically present and Hercules, Jean-Louis, and Patrick coming in via Zoom. Due to circumstances beyond our control, only John and myself, or Apollonius and myself, are physically present, with the other authors coming in via Zoom. The panel sadly was plagued with technical difficulties. So our second opportunity is coming up at LlewellynCon 2026, which will be an online event running from June 8th to June 17th. Clio and I were selected to give a joint presentation titled Exploring Theurgy as an Intimate Path to the Gods, which is a really cool name. Clio came up with it, not me. I'd love to take credit for it, but sadly I can't. So that'll be on at 3 p.m. CDT on day 8, which is Monday, June 15th. Clio and I then approached Llewellyn asking if this could be a panel for the seven of us, and they agreed. So we've only been allocated 30 minutes, so we'll have to run our panel very tightly. I propose the following format: the introduction, which will go for 1 minute only, a brief history of Theurgy going for 3 minutes, how the seven of us got together, which will be 3 minutes as well, and then each of us will speak about our essays in the order that they appear in the book, and we'll all have 3 minutes each, and then we'll do a closing talk, which will go for 1 minute. So I suppose I'll have to be the stopwatch Nazi to make sure that we get through everything in the 30 minutes. Our third opportunity for a panel we were hoping would be at Mystic South 2026 from July 17 to 19. Sadly, that failed to manifest. However, the schedule for this event literally went live 3 hours ago, and a few of us had our presentations accepted. At 9 a.m. Saturday, July 18, I'll be presenting a talk titled Making Ancient Greek Religion Relevant today. I'm not allowed to talk about any other presentations at other events this year, so mum's the word. But needless to say, I am really looking forward to presenting at LlewellynCon. It's a huge event. They're going to have 40 sessions. Most of them will be done by individual authors. Ours will be a panel, and we'll have a huge worldwide audience. And hopefully the problems that we had at PaganaCon won't be manifesting, and hopefully everything will go really well for us. So I personally am really looking forward to it, and I will be consulting with Clio privately just to make sure that we can tee everything up so everything runs really smoothly. I've got some firm ideas, but until she agrees to them all, I don't really want to talk too much about anything else. So that's pretty well all I have to say.
I have a question to ask. For my 3 minutes, I was going to talk about immersion, which is something I do talk about in the book, but I don't put into proper focus, or I could have put in more focus. So I was planning on looking at what I wrote through the lens of immersion and showing how immersion can be used to like supercharge what I wrote about. Would that be okay?
Yeah. I mean, the title that Clio came up with was Exploring Theurgy as an Intimate Path to the Gods. Intimate path to me means something very personal. So the more personal elements that you can incorporate into the short 3 minutes that you have, the better. And if you can enhance what you have in the book, that'll be really good. I anticipate a hell of a lot of people hearing this panel, so I want everything to go well.
And I had something to report. Our book has become a textbook in a group, an occult group that's forming in Chicago.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah,
Nice.
the other day.
Wow. Very cool.
How did you hear about that, Hercules?
I speak with many people.
Well, I mean, what I wanted to know, I guess, is did you sort of give them a nudge to use the book, or
I didn't. I gifted the person with a copy of the book because it's somebody I've never met the person, but I've communicated with them on and off for 20 years. And they're a Thelemite sorcerer, I guess you could describe them. So he informed me that they were using the book in the new series of classes that were starting in Chicago. So that's something about it.
well, that sounds like a celebration.
Yeah, that's really cool when something you've written gets used by other groups. I remember when many years ago when ceremonies and mythical things I've written started being incorporated into a pagan way in New Jersey. I was like, holy crap. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask Tony or to add to what Tony shared with us? Does anyone have anything more about the fate of our book once it's left the publisher and going out into the world?
I wonder if anyone has mentioned from, or considered a follow-up, because before the book, I understand why it's very exciting and wonderful to read about. I'm just curious how many other groups, how many other people would be interested in a continued exploration of theurgy instead of just having it as a one-time thing. But that's a larger question.
And that's a question that's occurred to me as well. So it's resonating in two minds at least. What do you guys think? Tony, Apollonius?
I think that given that publishing is a business, first and foremost, it's all going to come down to sales of this book. If this book is really popular, lots and lots of people buy it and read it, then yeah, I'm sure Jean-Louis will be approached about putting out a follow-up, a sequel to it, and hopefully we'll all be on board for that. I would love to do another project with the group. I think it'd be fantastic. So I think the more we push the book, the more it sells, the better it'll be for all of us.
I had had an idea a ways back and I shared it. I'll share it again. Since basically all of us had as part of their motivation working on this book, extending the reach of theurgy beyond its classical or Mediterranean roots, I'd like to do an exploration of theurgy beyond the inner sea and see how it manifests in antiquity and how it manifests now according to human understanding. That could be a separate book project. It could be kind of like an oblique sequel to this one without being the same.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I've always thought that there are many groups and many traditions where the words were never spoken to say this is theurgy, this is where our tradition stands on theurgy, but it's there.
Mhm.
And I would love to see, now that we're going, an opportunity is here. You've talked about the one group. Maybe there are other groups that are using it because they're finding it very helpful for them. So 2 or 3 years from now, we would be talking about, okay, what's the sequel? And how will we expand upon it? And what else can we put in it instead of, now that I have a better idea, okay, 5,000 words. It's very short. But, compared to what could be done. And we each come from a different angle.
So what I can do here now, because I'm the person in charge of my channel, is I can commit to putting together a forum where we can discuss this either privately or publicly for you. So I'll ask that. Would you guys like me to do that? And what I know everybody's very busy. What type of time can you commit to? Once a month, would that be enough or too little or too much?
Just in terms of the amount, that's fine with me. I do think that for a follow-on book, it would be a good idea to bring in some other people with, working in other traditions. Again, not necessarily called theurgy, but that's just a one word that's become popular lately for this practice, which is worldwide, and we find in all of these traditions. And I think that would make a second volume a little bit richer, would be to sort of expand out a little bit to have some additional people. And maybe not all seven of us will want to continue. I would want to continue, but maybe some of the others might not want to commit to a second volume. But in any case, I think we should add some new voices in as well. And because yeah, people are going to be out there saying, "Oh, like the old joke about I didn't know I was speaking prose." That I didn't know I was doing theurgy, but now I realize I am. I call it something else. And or is this practice that I've been doing? It seems kind of similar to what you've talked about as theurgy, but what do you think? And so I think that would be broaden the audience and also make it more interesting to other people to have more voices.
I agree with you. I've tried inviting people who haven't been part of what we're doing, but who know a little about theurgy. Unfortunately, a lot of the magical traditions operate on oaths where they can't divulge or talk about certain things. And also some groups are indeed secret, and we're pretty public people. And a lot of the people practicing magical traditions don't like to be public people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's right. Or they may, be able to discuss it at a certain level that's
Right.
public. And,
Do you know anybody you can invite?
well, not off the top of my head, no. All right. But I think also we have to see who reaches out to us too. So we have to kind of make ourselves kind of invite that as well.
So for those of you listening to this show after it's been posted on YouTube, uh, contact us. Contact us on Facebook or any other way you're contacting us if you're interested in becoming part of that conversation. And hopefully it'll be as productive a journey as our last one or our current one is. Tony, what do you think?
I like the idea of holding back and seeing who contacts us. There may well be people out there who are practicing theurgy, or, as you guys have pointed out, practicing something that is theurgy, but they weren't aware of it as being theurgy. I'm pretty sure that there will be people reaching out, wanting to come on board. I'm sure there are lots of academics out there who know a lot about theurgy, but whether they'd want to be included in a project put on by Llewellyn or not is another matter, because the thing is, we're talking about using theurgy practically. We're not talking about discussing it theoretically as an academic would do, but there'd have to be representatives of various spiritual modalities, either Gardnerian or Alexandrian witchcraft, who are practicing theurgy. There's a guy who Brandy and Apollonius and I have met a number of times, Don Fru. He's actually a high priest within the Gardnerian tradition, and he's heavily steeped in theurgy. He'd be a wonderful person to bring on board. And he's actually given talks where he's tried to trace. I remember him giving a talk where he traced elements of Gardnerian witchcraft right back to theurgy and Hermeticism. So I think he'd be a fascinating person to bring on board, and he's very happy to talk publicly. So he'd definitely be a good one.
You know him? Can you reach out to him to see if he'd be interested?
I can try. Apollonius, you know him as well.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah,
think he'd be a good fit?
I do think he would be a good fit. No, excellent. And he was participated in the Theurgicons too, as I
That's
recall.
right. That's right. Actually, it was he and Glenn Turner
Hmm.
who, well, it was Glenn Turner's baby, and but she consulted with Don Frew. So Don Frew picked out the people that he wanted to invite, and he tapped me on the shoulder, talked to a number of other people, and then Theurgicon was born. But he was there right at the very beginning, and I really enjoyed his lectures. Um, they were very information dense. I think, I think it'd be a wonderful inclusion. And I don't want to speak for Brandy, but I'm sure if Brandy was here, she'd say, "Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. We'd have to invite him as well." I'm connected with his wife on Facebook, so I don't know if I have his direct email, but if you wanted me to, I could contact his wife and get a message through to him that way.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. I was thinking of someone that has become more part of what I'm doing. He's a hermetic wizard, Alan Greenfield with the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light,
Mhm.
and he's in several like Rosicrucian Masonic encyclopedias that I've seen online. He's listed very extensive background in the OTO for a couple of decades, I believe, way back. So he's been very active in my UFO and cosmic religion, spirituality type of shows, those explorations. So I'm sure he would be interested in joining the theurgy conversation beyond the recent law.
Mhm.
I've never met him personally, but I remember reading one of his books years ago, and there were the extraterrestrial elements in it and all that, and I found it intriguing. He writes very differently to most other people who I'm acquainted with, but yeah, I'd love to be involved with him.
We're doing a series of books on his writings. That's something I'd want to do with all of you.
That would be
Yeah.
great. And I would like to add to something Apollonius had mentioned. Yes, I would love to be a part of volume 2. And now that I have a better idea of what's there, look, you always like looking back, what would you do differently? And it would be to add more detail in a different direction for theurgy. And that's something I think that would be helpful as sort of like the sort of youngster in the group in terms of length of time. I think now is
You're an old
especially
soul.
important. I'm sorry, what?
You're an old and wise soul. So
Ah, thank you. But I'm thinking that this is the time where my hope is that the marketing obviously was good. I truly believe it has been and continues to be. I think that just looking at the appearance of the book and then looking at the wide variety of things and the idea of see where you find yourself. Someone has found themselves within a certain aspect of the book, and hopefully they will find the book, give the book. I mean, we just had Mother's Day. Somebody's got to have something happening during the summer. Make sure the people have the book. I'm all about giving books for birthdays, any holidays, anything that people can have to keep it going because this knowledge and wisdom needs to be passed on
Mm.
um, before it gets to the point of, oh, okay, I heard about this thing and not knowing what it is. So it's the perfect time. And I agree that it is a chic current term for theurgy, which means we might as well grasp it while it's popular now and see what's on there. Yeah.
you suggest that you think would benefit the discussion that we're going to be having?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Can you think of anyone that you know that you'd like to invite to this adventure?
Um, I can think of a couple of people. What I don't, well, one I know be very interested in theurgy right now because we discussed and going, and he will be presenting at Mystic South. Um, and and I believe he's well, how is he going at Mystic South? He's either going as well, probably just D. Um, Sometimes it's Moon Raven, sometimes as longer formal title. But if anyone listening is going to Mystic South, trust me, it'll be very hard to miss him for two reasons. Number one, he's going to be everywhere. He likes to get in touch with a lot of people, and his stuff is there. So just ask and you'll see it. And he is not speaking of Theurgy, but we've had lots of good conversations on it.
Hmm.
And I actually would have to think about who else I know locally or even book-wise who might be interested. I agree with, I think it's a comment that was made about in terms of academia. We all have different day jobs and things that we do. And so part of it, I think, is not just the orders that might be secret or they have restrictions because they're oath bound, but also if someone's going to do this, they're going to be out in some way. And is it going to affect who they are in their outside life with the mundane world? And that is something that we have had discussions on that before, I believe. And that's something that when after our time at PaganaCon, um, we had, discussions on that. I'm thinking, well, is it, I think one of the things that makes it so difficult for any subject of this type is the people who know sometimes are not in a position to say, and the people who can say may or may not be at the same level as the people who know. So then you've got to figure out how can you make this so if you're going to go and add more people, is it going to be more of an intermediate level? If so, how far can you actually go with this? Because there are many aspects of theurgy that I think people would love to explore. And are they just going to be held back by the people who have the most knowledge not being able to share that? That is my only concern. And I don't know if it's a valid one, because you may know people who are like, I don't care. I'm going to just throw it all out there. And if you get in trouble with it, oh well. And they don't have to worry about anything else happening. What do you
that's
got?
a valid concern, especially now with the new types of conservatism that are popping up in a political dialogue. So it is a time to be aware of that and concerned with that. So thank you. Those are very valid points. Has anybody gotten any feedback about the book? I've gotten feedback from people who've read it, and the feedback that I've gotten has been consistent. They like the fact that there were different ways of approaching practicing theurgy that seemed to be connected but were different. And they really appreciate that and found that they like the approach better than just instructions on one way to do something. So that's the feedback that I've gotten on the book. Did anybody else get any feedback about the book from others?
I don't know, in the sense that I know that people were grabbing it. I don't know anything in terms of feedback beyond what you have mentioned.
Yeah, because that was one of my original concerns when we first started putting our conversation together into a book, which we originally wanted the different approaches to be highlighted, the different individuals and different ways of essentially doing something with the same goal, and based upon the same text and tradition. So they kept that, and that, it seems, resonated most powerfully with people I know who've read it and commented on it.
I mean, I guess part of things is that it's new or newish, and we're still, for example, Tony, even though you're going to be at Mystic South, are you taking copies of the book with you? I presume. I don't know.
I've got a few copies of the book, and I'm happy to bring them with me. I've also got copies of my other book on Greek religion, and I'll have those available as well. I always like to have a few to sell.
Yeah, I'll be bringing copies also, and I don't think they've put out a call yet for book signings, but I usually sign up for a book signing slot, and yeah. I've generally, found a lot of interest. People will just grab you in the hall and say, I
Mhm.
really want a copy of this or that book, and I can either, send them to the bookseller if they have it, or if I've or just sell them one of mine that I brought with me.
And I guess one of the things is that when when someone actually, I think, has a chance to look at you and, oh, you're one of the authors, they can then ask questions. I think at this point we don't have a lot of firm written reviews, but I think it's more of word of mouth, what people see. And if I recall, Mystic South, at least last year, had a table in the middle of the book selling room that was there for people to show up. So you are right next to where the books
Oh,
are.
absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes,
you
that's
can
right.
and you can have a conversation and that draws other people in. And so before you know it, you got 4 or 5 people who all are looking at the book.
And people come, typically you're doing a signing with, at least one other person, maybe a couple other authors. And, people will come to get a book signed by one of the authors, and then they'll see your book there and they'll say, oh, well, this is pretty interesting. Like, I'll get one of these too. And of course, I have always had great conversations with, the people I'm sharing the table with. And
Mhm.
so, and I usually end up buying one of their books if I don't already have it. Um, so yeah, it's a good opportunity, I think, to to do it. And since it's a Llewellyn book, they will have copies there. And since the authors, or at least some of the authors, are going to be speaking, I think they tend to stock more copies uh, of books by authors that are actually going to be at the at the conference. So so yeah, it's a good opportunity, I think.
Mhm. And they also really tend to go out of their way, especially for Mystic South, to promote so that when you're there, they'll say like, "Oh, yes, you're sitting there, Tony's sitting there. There's a book," and then they will nudge over and remind people that your book is here, and then you're going to be sitting there. And that was one of the things I really liked about Mystic South. And they have a cooperative agreement with some of the other conferences to cross promote each other. So I thought that was also a good deal. So um, we'll see what happens. I hope that both of you are not presenting across from each other.
I haven't checked, but I hope they do seem to do that.
Now that
We're in different slots. I've already checked.
Oh,
okay,
good,
good.
So I'll be able to hear Apollonius this time round.
good, good, and vice versa.
Uh-huh.
I guess for Tony, I know you gave at the very top a slight rundown within 30 minutes, and I lost track after the first or second or third 3 minute thing, and I'm going, wait a minute, do we get to 10 of these? Can we do this? And then we have 3 minutes for each person, but 3 minutes for each person times 7 is 21. But then I thought maybe we're not including everybody, or I don't know. I wasn't quite sure. If you have it, I hate to say this, if you have something written down,
I do. I've actually emailed it to you.
okay. Uh,
Yeah, you've been very difficult to track down. So I've come up with a proposed format, and I need you to agree to it. And so what I was thinking was an introduction for a minute, and then I was hoping you could do a brief history of theurgy in
yeah.
3 minutes.
Mhm.
And then I would talk about how the seven of us got together for 3 minutes because it predates the panel. It goes right back to Pantheon where Apollonius, Brandy, and I first met, and then it goes on to Theurgicon, and then eventually it sort of moves on to the panel with Hercules. So I was there right from the very beginning, so I'd rather, talk about that and have you talk about the history. Then each of us gets 3 minutes to talk about our essay in the book, and I wanted to do it in the order that the essays appear. So my one will be the last one, and then have a minute to close.
That
And
I'm looking at your thing and it does work.
yeah,
Sounds like a
and
good
you
plan.
and I can take turns introducing people and introducing ourselves. So and everyone just gets 3 minutes to. So Hercules has already talked about how he wants to enhance the essay with more of a personal aspect to it, and Patrick Dunn has ideas as to what he wants to talk about. But yeah, 3 minutes comes and goes very quickly. So I've already typed out my thing. I've got my 400 words. And I'm ready to go. It's got to run like clockwork. So like I said, I'm quite happy to be the stopwatch Nazi in this to make sure everyone doesn't go over their 3 minutes, so we get everything done in 30.
Absolutely. And when you said that, I thought, okay, I'm going to need to do like 3 or 4 drafts, make sure everything is
Uh-huh.
fine, and remember to breathe.
Yes.
Because well, the natural reaction, even though we've all presented, is to speed up, not because of nervousness, because of time.
Yeah.
So, but I think just less and just maybe one, I would be looking at 1 or 2 points at most, because I don't think you can get more than that in 3 minutes.
These are really teasers, I think, for the book and for each of our parts of the book. It's going to
Yeah.
get people
That.
interested in, why would I want to read that chapter? And if they say that about several of the chapters, then they're probably going to want to read the book. So
Mm.
I think that's really all you can do in that amount of time is a teaser, really.
Thank you. Actually, that makes a lot of sense, because that, I think, is the spirit of LlewellynCon. It's you tease, and then of course every day they have something else for different books, and by the time they get to where we are, we'll be like halfway through, or sort of, in the middle. Then this may hopefully improve and people will be like, yes, or they can follow along if they got the book earlier.
Mm.
I had an idea while you guys were talking. How about we do a little promos about ourselves and just put them in a group on Facebook and put them out on Facebook and other social media. But each person can have like, we do half an hour things or 20-minute things, whatever you decide is a good amount of time for you. And then just keep putting these out there to promote the book.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we could do that.
So it'll be Clio, Ajana, Vince, who wrote this chapter in the Theurgy book. Let's find out about you.
Okay, and I would probably, just because it is a tease, like we just had mentioned, maybe a little bit, so not like 15-20 minutes, it's more like maybe a couple of minutes.
Whatever you'd like, I'll leave that up to you. It's like the political interviews I do, leave it up to them. If you want to talk for an hour, I can about you an hour. If you want to talk for 15 minutes, that's fine. If you want to talk for 2 minutes, that's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with, we can use it to let people know more about who we are and what we're all about, and at the same time promote the book.
I figure less will be it's like, a little bit of a veil here, a little bit of a veil there, but you don't quite get everything away. And hopefully they'll be so excited, they'll show up. I think 3 o'clock in the afternoon is a really good time. That is indeed a compromise. I think that hits all of our time zones while we're still awake.
Mm.
Awesome. All right. If any of you are interested in doing that, contact me by email, and we will take it from there. Now, I have a question to ask everybody it's related to the book and not so related to the book. I have people coming to my house once a month, and we have like an informal get together with some instruction in the informal get together. And it's not focused on any particular tradition, but all traditions are welcome. And these are people who are in different magical orders, and some are secret, some aren't secret. Everyone understands how oaths work and things like that. And people like being there someplace where they can discuss different perspectives. And then a lot of behind the scenes stuff gets planned there also. So I've done like several speaking gigs and these get-togethers and so forth. So I was thinking of adding an instructional component to it on Zoom and also in person. And I would like to have as one component of that theurgy, but I'd like to introduce people to all of your works and have them go and explore your works rather than you introduce your works. I don't know if I'm making any sense. But what would you like me to focus on if your work was from part of the curriculum and the class was about theurgy generally? Where would you like me to point attention to? Like right now, John of Sopeus's websites are a holy shrine as far as I'm concerned. They've been around forever and they contain so much information. They just like going to the ruins in ancient Athens. You go to the ruins on the internet where these websites are. So with Tony, it's your Greco-Egyptian papyri that I send people to.
Yeah.
So what would you like me to send people to? How would you like to be part of the curriculum? It's not going to be very intense. It's going to be just an introductory type of thing. I'm structuring it like the Arbitel. I don't like the Arbitel book, just so you know. But the Arbitel, the introduction to how they structure it is an interesting way of structuring ancient information. So I'm using that to structure this. So there'll be different types of magic that are Greco-Egyptian primarily. And I'll be giving people introduction and some instruction, and they can explore it on their own. So what I'll be giving is just a very brief cursory introduction, and then directing people to explore on their own somewhere else. So where is your somewhere else? What would you like me to share with other people if that was a spoken wheel on creating?
Well, I mean, are you thinking specifically of theurgy or more generally?
More generally, it'll be like in the Arbitel, there's the Theurgy. I don't know how to pronounce it in English, but in Greek it's Theurgy. And he had some really valid points. I find some of his classification of repetitions, but I'm just basing what I'm doing loosely on the structure rather than accepting the premise of the Arbitel. I agree with some things in the Arbitel too, but I don't agree generally with the whole Arbitel. So he has several things that I would put under one category under Egyptian magic, let's say, or Marcus Greco. So it would be basically Greco-Roman, Egyptian, or Mediterranean magic. And it'll just give people a taste of different types of magic through an introduction, and then direction where they can take it from there and continue on their own. And I'm imagining the structure could be like a wheel with an inner hub and the outside wheel and then spokes. And each spoke would support the wheel, and you get a bigger picture by studying each of the pieces together and putting it, making it a whole. But you could also learn a lot from each spoke. So one spoke would be like Olympian shamanism, for instance. And focus on the heroic path as the way of shamanic experiencing and so forth. And I'm not going to spend weeks on that. I'll spend a couple of days, and then there's enough written on it, you know, where to look, where you could spend the rest of your life just reviewing the literature. So I'm just going to point them to some key literature, which will lead them to somewhere else if they want to go in that direction.
Well, you know, I can, in terms of some of my own stuff, I can make a couple suggestions.
Okay.
One is, you know, I've self-published some of the stuff that was originally on the Bibliotheca Arcana site as a book, Pythagorean Theology and the Esoteric Elements. It's quite popular. I've been kind of amazed. It's it probably sells more copies than most of my books, and it has, you know, a fairly in terms of it actually kind of talks about sort of the shamanic roots of some of these practices, and in Pythagoreanism and in Neoplatonism, and has, I think, or people have told me too, a pretty good summary of theurgy in it. Um, and so that would be one thing I would send people towards. And when it was on, what is still on the website actually, but you can get it also formatted as a book now, either a hard or either a paper book or a Kindle book. And one other thing would be the wisdom of Hypatia.
Mhm.
Uh, that it's intended as introductory, and it's intended to be practical, and it uh, progressively goes from Epicureanism to Stoicism to Neoplatonism, and Theurgy is basically the last chapters are about Theurgy, but it's essentially intended as a textbook, a 9 month program. Um, so those would be out of the stuff I've written, the two that really are sort of intended for that kind of purpose that I can think of offhand anyway.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I personally, from your stuff, I like what you recently published and you spoke about last time, because it's very close to how I see the universe. That basically when we come down, it goes through us and gets filtered into projections, and then we experience these projections. We're actually reflections of things inside our own mind. So this isn't, in essence, this is not that much different from a dream, where everything is you, and
Right.
you're forced to confront it and experience it in an interactive way. And the dreams and the altered state experiences in that, like lucidity and hypnagogic and hypnotic type of states, shows you how remarkable your mind is. Your mind is capable of creating 3D experiences out of nothing. And that is extremely powerful.
I think so.
Leo, what would you like me to direct people of yours?
I was thinking about that, and a lot of the stuff that I've gone through over the years can be found in current and past columns at the Wild Hunt, because I started my very first column. I started with the importance of prayer for the pagan life, and always a connection with the divine, always a connection. How are things working with the gods? I may or may not have always called it theurgy, but if you look, that's the common thread that goes through pretty much all of them, with a few exceptions. And but yeah, and they're different ones, and those are the ones people tend to respond to more.
I
Uh,
will ask all of you for this to be written in email so I can have it.
Absolutely. And Tony, I did send you thing back. I'm so grateful um that this group, and also not just writing about theurgy, but talking about theurgy, and it has helped with my own personal path, but I think it's also helped with the path of other people you come into contact with who are not sure about what theurgy is. And then you see it. So for example, I was at Sacred Space Between the Worlds, which I highly recommend. It's one of the 4 conferences where they cross promote each other. And I didn't have a chance to talk to anyone about the book because I bought all these copies and they all sold. And I never saw who got them. So I couldn't. I'm sorry, Tony. Just go ahead and laugh. It's okay. You drop them off, you come back, and it's like, we have a place for you to sign. I'm like, great, I can go over and sign, and there's no books left. So if you are listening and you happen to have been um, in the College Park area, College Park, Maryland, and you're one of the persons who got a copy of the Theurgy book from the Between the Worlds, Sacred Space Between the Worlds conference, which I believe was held 18th Wednesday, that Thursday was the 19th through that Sunday, the 22nd. You will remember because that was the weekend there was a massive storm. And so a lot of people who were further up north and Massachusetts, New York way stayed because flights were canceled and it was a horrible. So, well, I mean, I just remember seeing Christopher Penzak and was like going, yeah, there's nothing you can do when you can't get home. You just are kind of there. But if you did, please contact me. Clio Ajana at gmail.com or do Facebook. Things are great. And I if you got one, it's like I didn't have it signed, let me know. We can arrange for that. If you're going up to Mystic South, that'll be great. You now know you got 2 people at least who are going to be there. Yay. And of course, LlewellynCon, which is coming up. It'd be great to hear from people. But yes, I found that the more people who seem to know about it, it grows like flowers.
Very poetic.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Clio.
Mhm.
And Tony, yes, we all, if it's not known to you, you're greatly appreciated. For not only the effort that you're putting into this presentation, but for being a powerful and insightful presence during our conversations for all these years.
Hercules, you flatter me. Without you, we wouldn't have this group. So you were the one who was running podcasts and everything else, and you interviewed Brandy, and then Brandy brought Apollonius and myself on board, and it all started to take off from there. But you were there right at the very beginning, and I see this group as almost like a family. So we all contribute. So this is one of those occasions when I thought I'd really heavily push to get our submission right for LlewellynCon. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to promote the book, and the payoff could well be that we have a sequel that comes out, and maybe there'll be a whole series of books, like Oberon Zell put out a series of books based on the curriculum of the Grey School of Wizardry. So perhaps we're going to wind up doing the same sort of thing. You never know. So I don't have as many books out as Apollonius does, but the one that is most relevant, or more relevant, I should say, to what you want is Greco-Egyptian magic, because even though it's a system of planetary initiation, it has my approach to working with the PGM. I use a modular approach, so I have an opening rite, and then there's the particular spell or invocation that I want to work with, and then there's a closing rite at the end of it. So whenever I work with the PGM, I tend to use that approach. So it's a very good, very predictable way of working with the PGM. Regarding Hellenismos, it's written more like a textbook, and if anyone's interested in practicing Greek religion, not so much magic but religion, then there are all sorts of practical tips in there on working with the with the Greek deities.
All your books are wonderful, and your writings are wonderful, and your podcasts are wonderful. Are you still doing the Zeus and Hera show?
We haven't actually done anything for a few months now. We've been traveling a lot, and we have been talking about resuming doing them. I have my usual deal is I will review a book and then get the author on the show and explore some of the topics in the book that I found particularly interesting. So I actually have 3 or 4 books that I want to review, and so I'll be doing those, and I'll get the person onto the show. There's one I'm particularly excited about. There's a guy called Miguel Connor. I haven't actually interviewed him, but I reviewed his last book. It was about Elvis Presley. This one's about David Bowie. So if there probably are a few people on the planet who aren't David Bowie fans, but there's not many. So he actually explores David Bowie as a Gnostic, and I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on the book and going through it. I've always been a huge fan of David Bowie, and to actually learn more about the mystical aspects of his writing would be a real treat for me. So I can see that taking off, and I'll have to get Miguel onto the show to interview him and actually meet him, not in person, but like we are now online. I think that'd be fun.
When you when you do these, feel free to advertise them on my timeline.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's wonderful of you.
Because I don't always have the time to do the Know Your Theurgist blurbs like I used to try to promote everybody. So please, for all of you, feel free if you're going to be at a convention, if you're doing, you publish something, if anything's happening that you want people to know about. My main, even though I've lost the tens of thousands of people that I had before, with my other account, when I had the entire planet in terms of sword and sorcery cinema, we're here, it's about 5,000 people on my page, so it's still a substantial number of people. So you'll reach at least now.
Tony, I love hearing about that, and I'm wondering, the minute you said David Bowie, I am a David Bowie fan. I was wondering if you were also going to have this discussion regarding the Starman Tarot and Starman Tarot deck remastered, because which is obviously around and dealing with David Bowie. If that's a part, if you would consider that a part of your conversation, let's put it that way. Because
Yeah, I haven't gotten Miguel's book yet. He doesn't have review PDFs to send out yet, but I will be looking for that. I remember the Starman Tarot very well. I know David Bowie was consulted on it, and that came out at roughly the same time as my book came out. So it basically eclipsed everything when it came out because David Bowie is just so loved. And I have heard about his interest in the Golden Dawn in just writings online, but I wasn't aware of how heavily immersed he was into Gnosticism. So I'm really looking forward to see what Miguel's dug up. I mean, he did the same thing with the Elvis book. I knew bits and pieces of Elvis's interests and proclivities in spiritual avenues, but he brought out so much information that I hadn't heard before. Elvis's abilities as a healer, as a shaman, and so on. There was so much depth to the guy, and he changed the world with his music, but also with his heart and his magical practices. So, and I see David Bowie as being almost up there with Elvis. I hope my partner's not listening to this because she'd call me a heretic. She's saying they've got the same birthday. She's screaming from the other room. But yeah, for me to equate anyone to Elvis is, it's heresy.
Wrapping up today's conversation. So since we're with Tony, Tony, how can people reach you, and how can they follow you, and how can they tap into the things that you're doing in the near future?
Probably the best way is through Facebook. I have a personal page. I also have an author page, but I've been neglecting that for the past couple of years. I do have a blog through Patheos, but I've neglected that over the last few months. I've got to get back into it. I've got to produce more reviews and get the Zeus and Hero show back on track.
Thank you very much. And Clio, since you were talking last, how do people reach you and get involved with all the wonderful things that you're doing?
Well, a couple of things. If you just want to email me, cleoajana@gmail.com. I'm able to be there. Life is good. Or you can press a little envelope at the Wild Hunt. You can also DM me through Facebook for any of those. And life is really good right now. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. And thank you, Tony, for all the stuff you put together.
My pleasure. I want this to go really well. I'm excited. I've never put together anything like this. It's going to be as tight and as time restricted before. So, fingers crossed that it all goes well. So I'm looking forward to working more with you to make this project a success.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
On all our behalves. And Apollonius, how can people contact you and tap into your wonderful universe of ancient wisdom?
Well, probably the best way is through my website, opsopaeus.com. That's opsopaeus.com. And that has information about my books. You can email me through the website. You can, I've got some news up there and links to the Bibliotheca Arcana too. And I'm also on Facebook. I'm not as active as the rest of you, but you can find me as John Opsopeus on Facebook.
Thank you, and thank you all for a wonderful
Hercules,
conversation.
Hercules, how can people contact you? How can they find out more about you?
Best way is through YouTube and through Facebook. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
I'm assuming if you're listening to me, they know how to contact me. But
Well,
thank you very much. And I too consider us a family, and I look forward to this each and every month. And I'm already looking forward to next month's and success in all your endeavors, Pat.
thank you very much.
Twice in the same week next month.
Yep. Looking forward to it.